A summary of the story of David. Before you ask any questions, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to go over every major detail in the story of David, give or take a few things, and basically point out what moral dilemmas there would be and what could have influenced some of the choices made. So you can call this a dramatic retelling or just a reading or something, I don't know. Anyways, let's get into it. The people of Israel demanded that a prophet named Samuel give them a king so they could be like other nations. However, Samuel knew of what despair a king may bring and warned the people of it. Despite his warnings, they still begged for a king. God commanded Samuel to grant their wish, so Samuel went out in search of one. Samuel found a man named Saul and anointed him king, thinking that he would be worthy to rule Israel. However, Saul proved himself unworthy to God by disobeying his command during an attack against a rival nation, where he was supposed to burn everything they had and destroy everything, but spared their leader to be executed and a few cattle for his army to feast off of. So Samuel went to find someone who was truly worthy of being king of Israel. He meets a young man named David, who was weak and didn't appear strong enough to lead the people of Israel. God disagreed and commanded Samuel to anoint David because his soul and heart were pure in the eyes of God. So Samuel anointed David to be the next king of Israel. Meanwhile, Saul was being tormented by an evil spirit sent by God. One of his servants had heard of David and knew that he played the lyre well. They believed that the lyre could get rid of evil spirits, so Saul sent a messenger to bring David to him. Soon, David was in Saul's service. Saul enjoyed David so much that he made him a member of his army and became rather good friends with David. Saul's army had met with the Philistines who threatened them. To avoid a bloody, brutal battle, both sides would send their strongest warriors to fight. Whichever soldier triumphed determined the winner. The Philistines sent out a man called Goliath, a warrior of immense strength and size, while Saul chose David, simply because David insisted on it so he could prove himself. He called Goliath a wolf, in that he knew how to deal with wolves during his time taking care of his father's cattle. Goliath simply could not believe that the Israelites sent out such a weakling to challenge him. He taunted David while David, keeping his calm, gathered a few stones. He swiftly threw one which hit Goliath in the head, and he fell. David beheaded him and returned triumphant. David did well in each battle he was in and quickly climbed the ranks of Saul's army. He also quickly gained popularity with the kingdom's citizens. Saul soon became paranoid that David would use his status to overthrow him. Soon Saul began hunting David. David would flee from him. However, David will have two chances to kill Saul. He doesn't take those chances, however, because he has sworn not to harm the Lord's anointed. This could be seen as a drastic moral decision that would play out in the story. After David spared Saul a second time, Saul repented to David and treated him as one of his own, just as he had before. David swore not to harm anyone in Saul's family for as long as he shall live. Later, Saul would pass away and the Israelites would choose David to be king. David would soon take his army and crush the Jebusites who ruled Jerusalem. David would then bring the Ark of the Covenant, into Jerusalem and eventually into the city of David. Even though David was a loyal servant to God, he was still human and could sin. However, he would sin in such a way that it would bring God's wrath upon him. David would fall in love with the wife of one of his soldiers and have a child with her. However, he wanted to avoid being ridiculed for this and tried to have the husband return home to her and sleep with her, so it would look like the child belonged to him. When this failed, he simply sent the husband to the front lines of his army during battle so he would die in battle. David would soon marry the man's wife after his death. God would punish David by killing his child during birth. Soon afterwards, David's son, Amnon, would fall in love and rape his sister, Tamar. David would exile Amnon, but would not harm him because he loved all those in his family, despite what they may have done. However, his brother Absalom would not be so merciful. He hunted down and murdered his brother, then went into hiding. He would soon return and gain the support of the people, forcing David and whatever followers he had left into exile.